my name is Kasha Samuel, and I'll be doing a book talk on Jerry Spinelli. Jerry Spinelli's Maniac Magee. And this book is about an orphan boy who's on a journey to find his identity in a place he can call home. His name is Jeffrey Lionel Magee, and what happens is that he travels around until he meets Amanda Beale, who's a black girl around his age. She ended up loaning him a book, and during that time he meets up with other kids around that area, and he basically becomes a legend because of his physical capabilities and his athletic capabilities, and he impresses everyone in the town, and that's how he starts the legend of Maniac Magee. And so one night he tries to return the book back to Amanda, and he comes across some trouble, but then Amanda comes on and basically brings him home, and he becomes part of the family. And so he gets adjusted to that family until another person tells him to leave because he doesn't belong in the black community, and that's when he starts traveling again. And so this book is still about him, traveling, trying to find his home. So I'll read an excerpt from this book. And he was there when Hester and Lester were herded upstairs to bed, and Mrs. Beale said, "Don't you think it's about time you're heading home, Geoffrey? Your parents will be wondering." So Maniac, wanting to say something but not knowing how, got into the car for Mr. Beale to drive him home. And then he made his mistake. He waited for only 2 or 3 blocks to go by before saying to Mr. Beale, "This is it." Mr. Beale stopped, but he didn't let Maniac out of the car. He looked at him funny. Mr. Beale knew what his passenger apparently didn't. East End was East End, and West End was West End, and the house this white lad was pointing to was filled with black people, just like every other house on up to Hector Street. Mr. Beale pointed this out to Maniac. Maniac's lip started to quiver, and right there, with the car idling in the middle of the street, Maniac told him that he didn't really have a home, unless you counted the deer shed at the zoo. Mr. Beale made a U-turn right there and headed back. Only Mrs. Beale was still downstairs when they walked into the house. She listened to no more than 10 seconds worth of Mr. Beale's explanation before saying to Maniac, "You're staying here." Not long after, Maniac was lying in Amanda's bed, Amanda having been carried over to Hester and Lester's room, where she often slept anyway. Before Maniac could go to sleep, however, there was something he had to do. He flipped off the covers and went downstairs. Before the puzzled faces of Mr. and Mrs. Beale, he opened the front door and looked at the 3 cast iron digits nailed to the door frame, 7 to 8. He kept staring at them, smiling, and then he closed the door and said a cheerful "good night," and went back to bed. Maniac Magee finally had an address. Similar reads to this book are the Maximum Ride series by James Patterson, The Graveyard Book by Neil Gaiman, and Blue Mobility by Sharon Creech.